Alrighty, that finishes one. What I'm doing here, hey MGTOWs and preppers. What I'm doing here is I'm going to capture a waste stream, which I am basically composting at this time, like kitchen scraps and banana peels and carrot peels and that sort of thing. And I'm going to create basically a wall of tomatoes all along my deck here. And the idea is that tomatoes have a funny thing about them. And what they do is they have the ability, unlike pretty much any other plant that I know of, they have the ability to break compost or break kitchen scraps and other organic matter, probably like grass clippings and stuff like that, and turn it directly into kitchen scraps. Into compost. Pardon me, I'm getting over a cold. My voice probably sounds a little funny. These spring colds, the last of the winter colds have just been tearing me a new one. I've been like sick on and off. It's been kind of nasty, but I'm over this one and I'm recovering. But man, it's always a pain. But anyway, back to this. We have this is going to be a composting tomato planter, and this is a self-watering planter. You can find designs for these all over YouTube. But basically, I got the idea from the old Earthbox system that I have. Back when I lived in the condo, I had like quite a few of these, and I still have them in the shed. But what they do is they have this platform with a bunch of holes in it, and then you basically put some kind of like grass or something over it, and then you can throw dirt onto it. And then the dirt drops down into these little holes, and then it wicks up just like a candle. And you fill it with this tube on the side here, and then it drains out right here. And you just fill it until you see the water start pouring out. I built that one like last year, or actually back in 2011, I think. But basically what I'll do is you just plant the tomato in the very bottom of the planter, and then throw kitchen scraps around it, and then just cover it up with enough dirt to keep the flies off the kitchen scraps. And then then basically the tomato just shoots roots directly into the compost and just breaks it and grows like it's insane. And I'll probably have them way taller than me. And I'll have them along a trellis right along the deck here. This is something even a person like in an apartment can do easy. And you can basically capture that waste stream, which is all of your kitchen scraps and stuff, which would normally go into the trash or organic or whatever in your apartment house. And then you can instead put them in here and get a yield of tomatoes out of the kitchen scraps, and then let it sort of cook over the winter, and then in springtime you have a whole 5-gallon bucket full of excellent compost that you can use for starts or planting other other things like lettuces and onions or whatever else you want. And it's a pretty neat little thing, I must say. I'm going to have to go get more fence material, I think. But I'm going to have this trellis that's going to be like probably 7 feet tall, just tall enough for me to reach the top of it, and I'll secure it to the railing here with wire ties or something. And then I'll have like 3 planters, maybe 4, and then sort of train the vines up onto the trellis, and they'll be able to handle the evening sun. And in the hottest part of the summer, the evening sun over there shines directly onto that part of the house there. And if this thing here blocks that, it'll keep it very fractionally cooler, at least in the late afternoon. That's what you call permaculture. You use each little component. You're supposed to use as much imagination as you can to make each little component serve multiple purposes. They have a fancy name for it, but I can't remember what it is. But so that's my big, huge project right now. This is Sunday for me. The day is sort of waning down, and I'm sort of here. I'm at about 80% after that cold, but I'm going to at least make these tomato planters and get these things planted here, because I don't want them to die. And then I'll be able to capture that waste stream that was going straight into the composter, and I'll get a yield of tomatoes out of it, and then I'll have compost as well in the wintertime. I mean, next spring. Yeah, that's gotta love the elegance of that. You know, there's another thing that's been concerning me. I'm sure you guys are aware that what I was telling you guys a few months ago, or a few weeks ago, maybe it is a couple months ago, about the economic cycles that the economy goes through. It's like about every 8 years or so, the economy drops into recession, and then everybody panics and companies go out of business, and there's layoffs and people lose their houses, and then assets like houses and cars and stuff are sold pretty cheap on the market at that time because nobody's in the market for them. And at that same time, gold and silver, things like that, go up in value because everybody's panicking and they lose confidence in the institutions like banks and stuff like that, investment houses. Remember AIG? Anyway, but anyway, then, and the worse the recession is, the worse the depression is, the greater the spike in precious metals is. So anyway, what I'm seeing now is another troubling sign. I'm sure all the preppers, I'm sure, have heard of it, and a lot of the MGTOW preppers have also heard of this. But I think it's a new international bank that's run by the Chinese, and I think it's called the AIIG or something, whatever that stands for. I haven't a clue. But it's going to be an international bank that the Chinese will use instead of the dollar to do its international business, right? So if they want to sell manufactured goods to Russia, for example, in return for Russian oil, then they'll be able to do that with their own banking system instead of relying on the Federal Reserve System and the big international banks, which are like sort of run by the West, right? And and basically multiple countries are signing up for it. They're just like popping onto that thing right and left. And even Israel just recently signed up, and they're just going to be a huge network. And of course, Japan and the U.S. are not signing up. So that is going to be really freaking. That is an additional kicker, which will almost certainly make the next recession significantly worse than normal, right? First we had, back in 1992, we had that big recession, and I sort of missed out on that one because I was in Saudi Arabia, and hey, look at that. See that little bird there? Oh, darn, he flew away. Anyway, he was walking around my plants, and he was, like my raspberries there, and he was looking for little bugs to eat. That guy was working for me. That's the reason why I don't have to spray. I've got a huge, ugly, horrible hedge that I really hate, but both yellow jackets, but it swarms with yellow jackets and honeybees, believe it or not, and they're supposed to kill each other on sight, but somehow there's enough abundance on the property here that they apparently don't really want to bother with each other. So they basically just live in harmony, and or as sort of like angry neighbors, and then they each serve my garden, basically. The honeybees pollinate my fruit trees and the tomatoes and all that, and the yellow jackets sort of like fly along and then stop and look at every single hole in my broccoli until they see whatever made it, and then grab it and fly away with it. So I don't spray, I don't fertilize, I don't do any of that stuff. But I'm being diverted. Okay, back to the economy thing. So, 1992 was an economic crash and a big spike in unemployment, and then it normalized, and then the tech boom started going, and then in the year 2000 that broke, which was like 8 years later, and then the thing dropped down, and silly me, I bought my condo right in 1998, pretty much at the high. So even now, I am unable to really sell it for much more than I bought it for. So the result is I just got a nice place to live for like 14, 15 years, and now I'll turn it into money again, and harvest that money, bring it back into my budget, and then dump it onto the market, get rid of that thing, and then when the thing starts going downhill again, I will not be on that ride. But basically, okay, I'm a little fuzzy. So back to what I was saying on the economy. Then in the year 2000, right, it crashed again. We had the dot-com bust that time, and then we went downhill, and then we started normalizing around 1994 or 3 or so, and then in 2008, 8 years later, we crashed again, and this time the economy was pumped up by all kinds of real estate assets, right? And what are those things called? The subprime mortgages and whatnot. But anyway, now we have a lot of things that are sort of out of our sight. The derivatives, it's like insurance and bets and contracts on frickin' everything, and including like the weather, and they just bet and gamble on frickin' everything now. And the banks are all into that, or a lot of them are. Although I'm reaching the edge of my knowledge there, I think they are. But anyway, that's probably going to be the next big, huge pop, right? And if it follows the normal 8-year cycle, that will occur in about 2016. But some people are saying that it's going to be a little early, and some people say that the 8-year cycle that I've observed is actually a 7-year cycle, and they call it the Shemitah or something. So basically, but that the normal cycle should cause a big bust in the year 2016, right? But what I'm seeing additionally, we have another thing that looks like it's going to pop, and that is the world reserve currency is now going to have competition in the form of this AIIB international bank that the Chinese are creating, and they'll be able to sell manufactured goods to India and get raw materials in, and sell more manufactured goods to Africa, and create factories in Africa and get those raw materials and oil and whatnot, and all of that stuff. Right up until recently, the U.S. dollar has been needed dramatically because it was a fairly stable thing that countries could trade on. So they all wanted our currency really badly. But now, with this new international bank coming up, we're going to be in a situation where the dollar is going to have some serious competition, and a lot of trading activity is going to take place in other forms, like when I'm not exactly sure how it works, but they each put a certain amount of currency in, and then well, in any case, it's a way of trading that doesn't require the dollar. So then a lot of these countries overseas are going to be saying, well, we don't need the dollar as much, and when people don't need the dollar as much, the dollar is going to fall, right? And that will cause international manufactured goods, Chinese goods especially, to be more expensive, right? And then when they're more expensive, everything, even oil and everything on the international market will be more expensive compared to our incomes, right? So then, and even food, like grains and stuff, they're traded internationally, and there's an international price, and if the dollar is less valuable, then the price for all of those goods are going to be more expensive. Meat and things like that are, they're in it too, and they're going to be, and they use a lot of feed in these feedlots for the cattle, so those things will be more expensive, and so will milk and cheese and freaking everything, dudes. So and when this next collapse hits, or when this next recession hits, it's my opinion that it's going to be worse than 2008. Not necessarily hugely, insanely worse, but markedly worse, and greater, numbers of banks and liquidity problems, and companies just folding right and left, and layoffs, and people going into foreclosure, and basically a lot of real estate's going to become available at a real cheap price, and we might see some international investment, but during a recession, everybody's freaking out, even the rich people. So we might not see a lot of that until the recovery period, or the normalizing period. They call it a recovery, but it's just when things sort of shake out and assume a new normal. That's when that international investment's probably going to come in. And the Chinese are doing things like they're buying whole huge tracts of land, and they're attempting to get Chinese law and Chinese rule and everything, so that they can administer it like it's a small foreign country, and staff it with international workers that don't require immigration or anything from the U.S. because it's Chinese territory. They just run them into there. So basically, there's all kinds of funky things going on. Plus, I think that the UK is working on more capital controls to keep people from fleeing with their money overseas, and they're also doing things like setting the groundwork for for bail-ins. They call them levies, and what that is basically they'll say, well, you have $100,000, so you owe us $10,000 of that, and we'll just take it. Boom, and they take it. Just like Cyprus back in back in 2012 or 13, and it was just such an incredible betrayal to have the government just say, well, we want the money and we're going to take it. And if I understand right, what they're setting up in the UK is giving the banks the ability to just seize people's money when they lose their money on when the bank loses money on like derivative bets and stuff, and then they're about to fold and go out of business. Supposedly they're giving the bank the ability to seize people's deposits and percentages of their deposits, which is an absolute hands down criminality. And it's just going to cause, when they start doing that shit, it's just going to cause tremendous distrust of institutions like banks, right? And when that occurs, when people really start distrusting the banks, what are they going to do? They're going to throw currency and dollars and whatever their currency is. They're going to throw that into their mattress or whatever. But a lot of people are going to want precious metals. And when the panic really hits and when our currency drops, we're going to see anybody who buys gold or silver, especially silver, they're going to be, it's going to be one silver lining in this giant freaking cloud of crap. But so basically that's why I am, of course, starting to purchase more silver myself. And it's just, I think it's like $17 an ounce right now. It's come way down since 2011. As the economy has normalized, right? So we are in a situation right now where silver is low. And I'm a diesel mechanic, a real good one, but I am not an investment advisor. But I would highly recommend silver. We're going to have a really nasty recession. It's almost, in my opinion, it's almost guaranteed, unless the pattern somehow is altered. They might give us another war to distract the population, but we're already practically maxed out in big shooting wars in several different places. And, or they might have some kind of false flag again. And I'm not sure if everybody's opinion about 9/11 is the same as mine, but there's an awful lot of holes in that story. But anyway, they're going to have the normal recession will cause people to lose their jobs and stuff, and they'll panic and they'll want precious metals. But on top of that, we'll have the additional kicker of the international market starting to wean itself off of dependence on the dollar, and then the dollar will be in less demand and people will not want it as much. So the result is the price will drop and it will take more dollars to buy international goods, including gold and silver. So as the dollar drops, then we silver could be another 30 or 40% higher because the dollar has decreased. Now, a lot of people think it's going to be this calamitous, absolute meltdown like the road wire or something, but I am not of the opinion that that's going to happen. I'm more of the opinion that it's going to be not as severe as what happened in Argentina back in the 90s, and way not as severe as Zimbabwe. That's like serious runaway crazy inflation, a major currency collapse. But it's going to be something that's not as severe as Argentina. Maybe a 50% drop in the dollar, in which case if you have international, or if you have something that's in international markets like silver, that would turn by itself, that would turn a $20 investment in silver into $40, right? Or, well, maybe 35, something like that. Well, sorry, I'm a little disjointed. But basically, we're going to have a recession. On top of that, we're going to have a drop in the international value of the dollar, and that's going to cause anybody who has precious metals to thank their lucky stars. And then I would recommend putting a significant amount of money into silver, and then when the shit really is getting serious, like when we see a lot of recessions and whatnot, I mean a lot of layoffs and whatnot, then we'll see silver go way up. Probably my target is probably maybe as high as $80 an ounce. And if that occurs and you put $100 into silver, I mean that's like doubled again. It's like that would probably turn $100 into silver into like $400. And if you put 10,000 into it, that would turn it into like $40,000. And then at the peak or around the peak, anywhere in the neighborhood of the peak, you'll be able to take that silver and or some of it or half of it, just like I did last time around, and then you'll be able to take that money and drop it into some other asset which has been pushed down in value, like real estate. You know, if you want a house with a half acre or something like this one, you'll be able to get them cheap, just like I did. I got this place for like $160,000, and now it's like up to like $240,000, $230,000 or something like that. At least according to the tax man. So basically, and just like I did with my truck, I purchased, got that truck for like $6,800, and it's probably worth about $15,000 now, because it's such a useful thing. You know, it's diesel and four-wheel drive and robust, and you know, very good to have, very high utility value. And you'll be able to pick up assets like that for half of what you can pick them up for now. So it's just a matter of taking advantage of what is driven up in value. I mean, there's going to be a lot of unpleasantness, but you might as well profit by it a little bit. For example, if you buy a bunch of silver, you can turn around and in like maybe 3 years or so, you'll be able to turn around and sell half of that and buy stocks, which have international companies that have been pushed way down but still provide good income potential, like and good earnings. And then you can as the economy normalizes, and it will normalize, then you'll be able to take that. Then you'll be able to enjoy the upswing again. After you've profited from the upswing of the silver, then you can sell the silver into a real demand, and then you can turn around and buy stocks that have been pushed way down and then benefit from the upswing of that again. So that's the plan, basically. I mean, I'm just a diesel mechanic, but I've been around the block a few times and I've watched this stuff, and eventually as you get older, you start to see, oh shit, this is happening again. Well, here we go again, you know, and it becomes more and more obvious as time goes on. So I would highly recommend, although I'm not a financial advisor, I would highly recommend looking into to silver especially, and if you don't have room to store it, you could buy gold. But I am more of a silver kind of guy. Well, I'm going to get back to this wall of tomatoes that I'm constructing, and I'll talk to you later.